like, y'all don't even know what y'all talking about. And y'all associating it to concepts that if you knew what this came from, you would be operating with it in a different modality that might be able to benefit you. But we sound like parrots. We like to parrot what the pilgrims say and sound intelligent and not and negate what the origin of what something truly comes from. So when I tell people this and I say Doth comes from Africa, and the word Doth is still being used in Africa, in Brazil, in any place that they practice Yoruba, Ifa, Santeria, the word Doth is present. So when I say that to people, you heard? Yeah. Then you have to create this dialogue and an overview of qualifying why did you just say that, AA? And this is the thing with our people. I've been saying this, King. The scholarship was not available at the time amongst our people to qualify what I was saying to make it significant for them. So linguistically, we run the world. We are, however, the most forgetful people in the world. We rule the entire world, King, with our nuances and our sounds and our first identification in terms that we attribute to concepts that we use readily. So now when you push to me in front of me a book with it's flying, talking snakes, you heard? Levitating prophets, talking donkeys, flying monkeys, all type of shit inside of the Bible, right?
Right, facts.
They just be going in, and then people be like this, so and so, and people really be trying to do this, son. They be like this, so and so lived for 900 something years, and then he had a kid, and all of this, right? And then people even have the audacity to associate the Anunnaki to being giants or giant skeletal structures and shit and turn it into aliens and all of that. And I'll be like, this comes from a lack of knowledge and aping the Ophe, meaning you are mimicking the parody of your oppressor's lies and his inability to understand your African contribution to reality and history. And this is why I sell my books for $100. You heard? This is why I'm doing a class in Chicago and I'm refining the message as much as I can. And I have a scorpionic approach to teaching, so it's very oversimplified. So I can only actually cater to people who truly want to learn. You see what I'm saying? As opposed to just trying to walk around and parrot these conversations in these circles. And a lot of conscious people, they want the information so they can sound strong in a conversation around in a group of poor people. You heard? So I'm like this. I hope you get something out of what I'm saying and can matriculate what I say into a means by which you can facilitate getting you some finances and some fiscal integrity, not to be walking around parroting what other people say and acting like you fake mad, because that's the first stage of consciousness is anger. You heard? Anger as to why you ain't never known none of this. So now when you say the word Doth, King, how do we first become identified with the word in our experience? It appears inside of the Tanakh. And for the listening audience, I know I got students in the listening audience. I don't know what type of student you is, because I can't see the list and all that of the people, but I know my students that I talk to and that have all the books and that have attended classes and that are teaching operatively. They know that I would say to any term, go find it in the text, and then you narrow the words around it and find the context of what that word and why that word appears in the text. My students, if they look up the word knowledge in English, and I'm gonna give them an exercise. You go to biblehub.com, BIBLE hub.com, and go to their search engine and put any words you want inside of their search engine. Go to BibleHub.com and put the word knowledge in. And then there's another bar that has all the languages that you can see this term appear. And you go right to the HEB, the Hebrew, and go look at the Hebrew and go, and it will offer you for whatever text or whatever chapter, verse, or appearance in the text. It's going to offer you the location and actually show you very specifically where and what you are looking for and where it's at and what the word is, and it's going to show you. But this ain't going to serve people that don't know how to read the Hebrew. If you ain't got time to remember 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet, your English is not even popping. Your English is meaningless, in fact, and you walking in error. And a lot of people attempt and act like they teach it. I don't care what location of the teaching galaxy that you come from. If you teach it Pan-Africanism, if you teaching yogis and you teaching mysticism and massage and crystal sciences, if you speak in English and you don't know Hebrew alphabets and the archetypes, you are wasting your time fat mouthing with our folks. You heard? Because there's a deeper meaning intricately woven into this language. English is very magical. It's one of the only languages that occupy a space where you can actually say, like, when, for instance, I'm reading a play right now called The Caucasian Chalk Line, and it's about, I'm reading it in commemoration of what's going on right now with all of this, the bullshit going on with the wars and whatnot, in quotations, and this seeing the argumentation used and employed by in these little political terms, and how people is acting like they all political and shit, right? But it really comes down to survival. So I'm reading, and in the preface they say that in the Germans have a preoccupation with using mad words to describe stuff that when they translate it in English, English cuts down the amount of words by almost half. You heard? But however, when you get to Hebrew, English adds on words by up to a half. You heard? So you get into, and you speaking, and this is another thing that people of color must understand this. You come from an ancient people. A lot of y'all think that your ancient lineage and y'all greatest contributions to humanity and to the globe is books, and that's not the case. Books come as a result of your lack of mindfulness and forgetfulness that came around sometime around the time of the 18th dynasty. The Egyptians must have got a download from the universe, and they started feverishly writing down everything that they could. They was writing on calf skins, anything that they could find, papyri of all kind, because they had already received the message that the people would be forgetful. They'll forget who they are. You heard? So if somebody has already done it and they went to the BibleHub.com and typed in the word knowledge and they go pull it up, I like the knowledge phrases that come from the book of Proverbs and what's the other one? The Psalms. You heard? Because it uses the term knowledge within a contextual framework where it is mentioned along a linear descent model of other terms. These terms two-dimensionally, if you tell me a story, say you tell me a story, Rich, right? And you say the only thing I want you to do, Rashid, is to write down what I tell you, but don't write it down, draw it out, right? So if you telling me a story about a cosmology, and the rule is I can't write down what I learned from it with words, I have to write down, I have to draw it down or etch it in the form of art. What am I going to do? I'm about to draw a bunch of circles. You heard? And interactions. And those interactions are going to be subjective lines and drawings and paths in between these circles, which are objective. You heard? And then here we have the tree of life. The tree of life, the Kabbalistic tree of life comes from the book of Chronicles, bro. You heard? The higher part of the tree of life, the part of the three major Sephiroth above, it actually comes from a lot of terms in Psalms and Proverbs. You heard? So can you imagine me having this dialogue and telling people this and speaking on this, and don't nobody know what I'm talking about, but yet they can tell me everything about the biblical context, the biblical this, the biblical that, the Bible this, the Bible that, and they speaking in terms of like, yo, well, Moses, I can't stand when I hear somebody tell me this shit, Rich. I promise you, this shit hurts me and it breaks my heart. And I can also tell that you don't know nothing when you tell me that Moses studied in Egypt. You heard? He studied magic and high sciences in Egypt. And I'll be like this, you a little baby. You a baby. There's no such thing as Moses. There's no such thing as Moses, and none of them biblical prophets ever existed. And you're a small boy and a child for clinging on to your slave master's narrative. These very same stories was used to enslave you. And how did we get so interdimensionally fucked off mentally that we are under the impression that we have a space or a reality inside of a book that enslaved us, King? And we from pre-book, we from oracular traditions. So all of our traditions stem from people who was like this. And then when you pull this rug up from under the Negro mind, because you know it's a lot of people in consciousness that's still religious. You heard? They pump fake and acting like, you know, they get the jollies from being around everybody and whatever, and just being like, yo, we pro black, but you don't know your Hebrew alphabet, and then you don't know that the number 666 is hidden inside of terms all throughout the biblical narrative under the word sutin and soot and sod. You heard? Sorath is one of the terms. Sorat. You heard? Meaning the darkness is the way. You heard? And what they're talking about, they're not talking about the philosophical darkness that you've inherited from your Eurocentric English, because you was even afraid of your own self. You see your own self and you scared of your own self. And then a lot of us, we grew up, bro. The most horror films came out in 1982, King. You heard? And it all came as a result of this, you know, white folks, man, sitting up playing with the narratives given to them by what's his name, H.P. Lovecraft and all this Cthulhu garbage. You heard? It has nothing to do with my spiritual practices and my ability to demonstrate that my religion is based off of removing negative sorcery away from me. The way that our people were able to find out who was hating on them and who was trying to get them at them, they use this term. They would go seek after it. It's called an Odu, and this is where the word Doth comes from, King. You heard? So when you go get a reading from Rahaku, you go get a reading from Oba, in particular Oba. You heard? Because Oba, as an initiated mind, has to use divination practices. So he can't just tell you, and I've known people that have gotten readings from Oba and call me and say, thank you, bro. You saved my life, bro. You heard? Thank you. I appreciate what you just did. You saved my life. Because ain't no way Oba, and I don't even know your business. Oba is able to read divination readings and then go like this. He does the ritual and he's able to tell you things that you didn't even know what's going on, but there's things that's around you. You're like, how the hell does he know this? You heard? So for you to sequester and to look for things, you have to go through a winnowing device. Winnow, like a winnow. WINN. I'm not the greatest speller in the world. WINNOW, a winnowing device. And to give you an example of what a winnowing device is, let me digress first, and then I'll bring it back to the winnowing device, or collectively just put it in perspective. That, have you ever lived in a Jewish community and you see a center, and it's called the Chabad Center or the Chabad Temple, where the term Chabad, Chabad, is employed? Well, it's an acronym, Chabad, and it's an acronym for a winnowing device. Now, what is a winnowing device? How many of you in the listening audience actually have a vehicle or car? If you have a car, many of you have to employ the use of oil so your car can perform. When it's time to put oil into the vehicle, there's a specific tool actually used. You heard? The tool, like if your car needs oil, it's different from your body. If you ashy, you rub oil on your external surface. You heard? You don't oil the car by by rubbing oil on the car. You just don't throw a bottle of oil on the car. You go get a device. The device is called a funnel. Winnowing device. Another winnowing device is called a shud. A shad is how you say breast in Hebrew. When you say Shaddai, it equals the number 314. 314 in Gematria, 314 is a very significant numeric symbol, because it represents the infinite powers beyond the number 3 and the irrational fractions of 22 over 7. So now when you get into that and you understand that the breast is a winnowing device, if you was ever breastfed, the only way you can get that milk is through that device. It's a winnowing device. So like cars need funnels to pour oil in them, humans need breasts to have the galactic milk of the galaxy in the form of their mother's milk, almost like the same way milk arrives or water arrives in the center of a coconut and you have to get it out. It's the same way. So what is Doth? Doth is the fount of the winnowing device. Doth is the location where knowledge is the bridge that brings wisdom and understanding into the world or the mind of those who sequester and ask for it. You heard?